And welcome to AFL Rewind, ArenaFan.com's look at everything arena football. I am your host, Tim Capper, along with my co-host, Jon Stark. Hey, John. How are you, buddy?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm still, it's funny to say, I guess I'm, obviously 5 years later, 5 years older. Am I not able to do road trips as easily as I used to? Because I tell you, dude, after coming back from Albany on Sunday, I was just freaking exhausted.
Yeah, it's hard out there for a pimp.
Yo, yo. Yeah. Um, Obviously, week one of the 2024 edition was unique to say the least. It had, to me, honestly, dude, it had a lot of positives. It had, unfortunately, a lot of negatives, and we're going to be talking about everything. Nothing's going to be held back. And please, everybody, if you want to chime in, please do so. We want to make sure that you do get in your thoughts and stuff like that, and we will make sure we will put them on the screen. So we're not gonna have any issue putting your stuff up there. So, um, yeah, as I was saying before, it's that this weekend kind of, John, reminded me specifically. I don't know if it was the same for a lot of other longtime AFL fans. If it kind of was a reminiscent of the old what happened for the opening game in 2012, which, by the way, happened on NFL Network also, where the entire Pittsburgh Power got fired at fired at Olive Garden before the game. And then they started to have to put a team together real quickly. I remember going through that night with Adam Markowitz, and I remember how NFL Network felt. I remember how us felt when it came to putting in stats like that. But it was kind of reminiscent of that to me, John. But I don't, for you specifically, did I don't know. I know you weren't around in 2012 for that particular game, but I mean, anything else that kind of reminds you of in your AFL memory?
I would not say that this was reminiscent of anything that I have witnessed. What we had in 17, 18, 19 certainly did not reach the depths that this situation we saw with the soul.
Right. No, that's fair. And there was a lot of other things too besides the soul itself. But let's go ahead and let's get this stuff out of the way first. We'll talk about the positive, and then we're not going to hold anything back here tonight, guys. So, um, we can say that the Billings Outlaw looked great in their opener, beating Wichita. Um, Albany, we'll talk about that game here in a minute because I was there. Overtime game, man, it was arena football at its best, and what arena football is, I remember the most.
Yes.
62-59 over the Orlando Predators, and what a game in itself it was. Iowa Rampage beat Rapid City 58-28. Nashville Cats started off, I think it was a 35-0 run, or was it 42-0 run, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and just wallop the Minnesota Myth 47-12. Oregon Black Bears beat Washington 47-40 in a great game from the parts of it that I saw. West Texas beat Georgia 51-28, and Salina beat Southwest Kansas in another nail biter, 43-40. Obviously, I did not talk about the Louisiana Philadelphia game, but that was 53-18. Okay. As I said, let's talk about the good here this week. I'm going to
I
start with
gotta,
you.
I gotta, I gotta get my suitcase because we got a lot of things to unpack, Tim.
Yes, sir, we do. But if we were to talk about on the bright side of this week, what would it be?
Obviously, the game you were at, the Predators at Firebirds, amazing game, reminiscent of how we remember the AFL. High scoring affair, lots of action. Firebirds trailed for most of that game. We saw possessions matter, get that overtime win. That game had everything. I mean, we saw a deuce. We had the first touchdown of the season. I don't know. The list could just go on. I could read it right down
Hmm.
and give you everything that happened.
Yeah.
Premier game. Loved it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it seemed like all the greatest hits were being played at this game. That were brought out for this game itself. A great rivalry. Unos were scored. The
Yep.
deuces were scored. You had it was indicative. This was the perfect way for this game to start. By the way, John, is that the opening kick bar ball. Opening
Yeah.
kick, bar ball. I mean, yes, there was a little hiccup because I'd forgotten that the overtime rules actually the overtimes are actually only supposed to be 5 minutes in length. I had forgotten about that, but it's a one game thing. I get that because I remember back with the original first week of the back in '87, they didn't they didn't get the rules right either in that game. So obviously, it'll be learned for next week. But it was top notch from the most of the time from the referees, from the game day ops that Albany was able to do, the uniforms, the field, just the matchup itself was perfect. It was perfect. That's probably going to be one of my highlights, obviously, right now of the season itself, is this actual matchup itself. You had other than the blowout in Nashville, you had a great crowd in Nashville. If anybody hasn't seen some of the pictures online that our great photographer Andy Lipishnek has taken, they're over on not all on our socials, but over on our Facebook page. We have an entire album there. Um, it seemed Billings drew really well. The close games in Salina, the close games in Washington, even though there are going to be some issues that we're going to be talking about, obviously, with Washington. Um, but again, don't have all the updated numbers yet as far as when it comes to attendance. Start getting into the negatives, but I mean, but overall, again, as I said, there were a lot of pluses. You had Washington's helmets, by the way. If nobody saw those, did you see those, John?
Those are some great helmets. Those are got to be the best helmets that we've got in the league.
I know.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. Um, that what else? The new turf systems. A lot of people were kind of poo-pooing when it came to the turf system in Louisiana, but that's actually part of the new turf system. Turf system also, where they're in squares and they're laid out rather than having turf like they do, I think, in Albany and Orlando and some of the other former CIF cities and stuff like that. I think the turf was really well done. Most of the places that had the regular net system, even though there were some quirks um, for some of the cities that didn't paint them, but we're getting into negatives, and we'll get into those in the moment. um, but all in all, it's again play wise, it's great. It's too bad the games were not on NFL Network like they should have been. But the league did come out with Vire TV, the Vire Network for those three games that were supposed to be, and then obviously ArenaFootball.live, which I think they did okay. I mean, it's from what I saw of the footage, because I was trying to watch the game and stream at the same time while I was over at MVP Arena. Not the easiest thing to do.
No. No.
But I was in, for considering what it was, I was impressed. But again, it lost a lot of oomph with that first game not being on the NFL Network. And that leads into what will be a plethora of negatives. But I mean, before I finish, anything else that you saw, John, that you would check off as a positive, besides me going 8-0 and pick 'em?
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Really?
that it doesn't happen often, but yeah.
Goodness, that's awesome. Just echoing off what you said, that game would have been a great game to have featured on NFL Network. We certainly would have seen a little less naysay from some of the bigger media outlets had that Albany game been televised on a national podium there. We got a lot of negatives to talk about. Um, I will say 4 out of my 5 picks from last week in terms of what teams do I think are going to be heavy hitters came to fruition. The
Hmm.
Rampage, Albany, Predators, and Billings. Uh, I had mentioned I thought the Myth would be out for a prime showing, and clearly Coach Kokinos comes back with some sort of amazing game plan.
Yep.
Or, or were the Myth just that bad? And that's something we're gonna have to wait to see.
Oh, were they just that, a myth? So I mean, it's yeah. I'll give props to Coach Kokinos. He had the team ready. He had the team ready. So
Yes.
I'm not gonna argue with that one. Obviously, congratulations to all the head coaches. I spoke with Coach Ware from Albany post game in Albany. Congratulated him on his very first Arena Football League win, and obviously congratulations to all the other coaches who got their very first wins also. Um, okay. Quick question actually first. Dave Williams, it was great seeing you, Dave. No, there are stats out there, but they're not in its normal form. Unfortunately, it looks like Arena Fan will not be at its normal capacity yet until we get these things, and we'll get them up as soon as possible. Um,
And we're not the only one missing those stats.
no,
It's not us. No,
no, exactly.
it's the league and the teams. They don't
Uh,
have those stats either.
I brought this up before from Adam. What were the overtime? What was up with the overtime rules and apparently not following them completely? The only difference in my understanding is the following: is that um, the overtime are not supposed to be one 15-minute quarter. I thought at one point it was a typo in the actual rule book. It says 5 on in the actual rule book itself. It actually I thought it said it's supposed to say 15. I'm going to try to get that clarified either way. But it was according to what it currently says is that the overtime quarters are only supposed to be 5 minutes long, and then after 5 minutes, because I think originally it was Albany that kicked off to Orlando, and then after 5 minutes, Orlando would have kicked off to Albany, so giving them a chance to kick a deuce for a win, or however it's supposed to be. Cut touchdown. Oh, God forbid an Uno. We talked about that last week. So yeah, so I'll try to get some clarification on the rule itself, but from right now, that's what it looks like it was supposed to be, a 5-minute quarter only, 5-minute half overtime, go to the next one. And I don't remember what the maximum was. I'd have to go back and check, but that's what it was. I know that there's a big elephant in the room, but let's bring up your first negative. I mean, we know there's a whole situation with Philadelphia, but let's talk about some other stuff first that kind of bothered or irked you that you saw that you would obviously call a negative.
There's a list. There's a list. I don't know if I could. It's hard for me to just prioritize one as my top gripe. Let's see. We've
Ready?
got
One,
the yep,
two,
two,
three, go.
go. We've got the graphics, the tickers. They were a mess. They were not uniform. Some didn't even have tickers. There was one game that had a picture-in-picture of the overhead scoreboard. We've got the lack of uniformity with the dasher boards and some teams. One I'm thinking of in particular was that Washington and Oregon game where they used cattle fence as boards with padding over it.
Yep.
We've got a major lack of attendance in some of these cities. We have lack of moderation in the AFL Live chat that absolutely blew up.
Yeah, don't get me out
Not right.
going on that one, man. I heard
We've
about that and I saw that. That was just wrong.
Yeah, that was wrong. We've got the net systems in several of the games. One of them looked like it was, to quote somebody from the Arena fan family, a Home Depot special with some Hobby Lobby accessories. It was zip
Yes.
tied. It's not look good. But We got some good positives. There was action in multiple games. There were close games. We did see the Southwest Kansas Storm come back and make that a real close game after they were trailing significantly. We also have some good attendance numbers across the league from what we were able to gather. So, I mean, in my opinion, we've got some negatives outweighing the positives, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of negatives.
There are. What frustrates me is, and we saw it early in the season. I guess I'm going to go from least worst to very worst. Um, um, the net systems for most places will look fine, but you need to have them uniform. Albany. And look at the ones that were the way they should be. Billings, Albany, Nashville. The ones that were partially painted, I'm sorry, it takes away from the aesthetic of the game itself. There needs to be uniformity across the board when it comes to the nets. Net systems, if you can call it the quote unquote net systems in New Orleans, net systems if you can call it, uprights black uprights in Washington.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, come on. I mean, you have the boards issue, the dasher boards in Washington, which we're going to talk about here because yesterday on the now deleted AFL podcast, they had the owner of the Washington franchise on there, and that just pissed me off to all hell, all ends. So it's, but there needs to be some uniformity. Really, there really does, because I think it's. The AFL over the years has, it has, there's been a look to it. There's been a look to it the entire time. And unfortunately, in this circumstance, that wasn't the case. And I think it just really, really looks crappy. So here, hold on a second, real quick. Of course I forgot something.
But also another great point out from the chat on YouTube from Charles: teams without last names on the jerseys. We just have numbers.
Hey, I'm going to go back to a real positive, by the way. Everybody was complaining about how the uniforms look in their glam shots, I'll call them. You got to admit, they actually did look pretty good on most of these teams. The away jerseys, by the way, some of the away jerseys look fantastic. I love the Predators away jersey. It looked absolutely amazing. And it wasn't, yes, it is almost the same font for all the numbers, but yet a lot of them seem to have a thicker font surrounding them. So it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And as everybody can see now, not everybody has, just black or just white helmets. Rapid City has their red helmets, the gorgeous orange helmets in Minnesota. So it's, but no, I agree. A lot of these are a little nitpicky things, but I mean, you need to make sure that you have the correct nets. And leading to that is what happened yesterday on the AFL podcast, the official AFL podcast, is that they had the president and owner of the Washington Wolfpack on there talking about their game this past weekend. Sorry, it was Salem. Excuse me. It was Salem, the Oregon franchise. Just how he came off, John, in this interview really, really irked me, because my thought is this: you have all this time in order to do this correctly. He did admit that they do have the other dasher boards, but yet the only way in order to get them to get the setup properly is that they have to be embedded. The screws have to be embedded into the concrete, and they didn't want to do that at the arena, which I completely understand. But you would think that you would ask about that particular slight small item before you actually order them.
Not only that, but we've got a minimum of a 10-week season depending on how your team places. It's not like they're going to just be using these boards for one weekend and then taking them down for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And these boards that they're currently using basically rodeo barriers. and I think I had talked about this on social media before, about just I am afraid for the players. I'm afraid for the players. Now, maybe if they had actually gone to the extra step and gotten the dasher padding, which is supposed to be 6 inches thick, and we're using that, okay, I'd feel a little bit better. But I still think I would would like to call BS on the answers that he was giving last night, because you had time in order to set this up. I understand that you're at a smaller venue, but you take advantage of the venue that you have, and then you modify what you currently had to make it better. Just saying, oh, we can't, it's basically putting it onto the arena. Oh, we can't put the dasher boards in because they won't let us, screw them into the concrete. Okay, whose fault is that? If you know that was the case, then go ahead and get the other ones. And by the way, for those of you who didn't know, and I didn't know this either, the other type of dasher boards that are being used is being currently used by Nashville, and those are the ones, John. They're actually filled with a lot of water.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
which I didn't. So that's the one that they should have gotten for that arena. And it's funny. Somebody reached out to me today. It says, "Do you know? Can you tell me who it was?" And you can reach out to, and I'll reach out to them, and I'll get them to them. I'm thinking, because the guy last night, I felt he was a little flippant. Because, it's like, oh, if I order them now, it'd take us 2 months to get them. So don't you expect to be here in 2025? Do you not? That was the other place where I'm talking about the net system, which was a joke. But the one thing that really pissed me off, John, was how he basically stated that, despite having how the nets are set up, despite having how our boards are set up, all the kids are cool with it. They're cool with the product on the field. The adults are cool with product on the field. Okay. If you're going to settle for status quo, then we have a lot of problems.
Certainly, and of course they're cool with it. They're kids. They're not gonna they're not gonna have detailed opinions with criticism about the history of the league and the product that we want to see on the field. And I'm disappointed that I was not able to listen to that now that it's been deleted or
I
pulled or
know.
taken down or what have you. But,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
I feel for Rod Villagomez, by the way. Rod is a great guy. I understand that currently he is the host of their podcast, John. He was just getting reamed. And people need to understand is that the answers that he is getting is the answers that he's getting from the league, and he's currently the mouthpiece of that said information. And it makes me really interested to see, because obviously as a post-game show kind of Commissioner Hutton is going to be on their show post-game after the game on Thursday. So that'll be interesting to see what Commissioner Hutton has to say. And hopefully he'll be able to give answers and just be completely. I remember I've touted that this is one of the most transparent leagues that front offices that I've been able to deal with. I'm hoping he's going to be transparent throughout the entire thing. So,
yeah, it's been real quiet this
yeah.
last week and a half, 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it's I would like to hear what the commissioner has to say. I know he's been on a few other I know there was a podcast released yesterday, but we all love this league, and it just can be embarrassing to see how some of this has occurred. And yes, I can understand that we have, there are 10 more weeks to go. We the games are still supposed to be on NFL Network. This was supposed to be on NFL Network coming up this week. So again, things need to improve. I'm trying to think of any of the other things that it's just the aesthetic, dude. It's just so frustrating after seeing how well it seemed to have gone in Nashville and Albany, and I know it's going to go well in Nashville, Albany, West Texas, Billings. They're doing it right. They got it what's necessary. We'll see what's going to happen in Orlando this week. I'm sure that they're going to draw well, and because they got West Texas. And anything else? Because obviously as I said, there's a huge elephant that we have to talk about, because It got a lot of it got a lot of press coverage and obviously a lot of negative coverage for the AFL.
Yeah, not good. I hate to see NBC Pro Football Talk and Mike Florio putting out an article basically shaming the league, calling it a thud, hoping that the summaries of the contests were AI generated because, quote, it would be sad to think humans had the time or inclination to write more than 1,000 words about the Outlaws beating the Regulators. So, ah,
And it also made Pat McAfee. I know some people
I
don't
heard
like Pat.
that.
Yeah, I know some people
Yeah.
don't like Pat McAfee, but yeah, it was also he also made a mention of it on he made a mention of it on his show too the other day. Um, okay, let's talk about this thing here. Obviously, a lot of us have not been happy with how it seemed that some teams are coming off and running things. A lot of fans may not know the better of how it's supposed to look for the Arena Football League because you haven't been around, and we have the right to nitpick. We do. We really have the right to nitpick because there's been a storied history of the AFL. Well, unfortunately, in Philadelphia, John, this is one story that we do not want to. Unfortunately, I don't think we will forget, and we shouldn't forget, based off of said information that came out, or and what the result was. Obviously, things were um,
I,
broken or talked about by an actual player agent on the Soul. Um, it to me, I'm hoping that this is, and this goes to the conversation that Lee has on Thursday, his interview there. I am hoping that he can give a little bit more insight of what he can, because I have heard, we've heard the players' point of view, and I will admit it did not look good at all to the league. Now, obviously, there was a particular reason why the team was let go. It's obviously it's a different reason than why Pittsburgh was fired back in 2012, because that was a union thing. But if we can get some more clarity on what happened, it would be nice to hear. And I am hoping that despite Commissioner Hutton, what seems to be, from what I've heard from a lot of people, ghosting their emails and just to get a simple response from him, that he will that people just try to take what he says on Thursday as the truth. I will take it at that, but as I said, we all have our own minds to make up. And I'm sure we will hear about it in the chat room there. We'll hear about it online, et cetera, et cetera. But this whole thing with the players, what was stated when it came to if it was the case how the reasoning why they were kicked out, the reasoning why they were fired, the reasoning why Coach Pemmel resigned, the reasoning why only 4 of the current that roster that was released made it to Louisiana, the reason why that they had to hire an AAL2 team to play as the Philadelphia Soul, air quotes, Philadelphia Soul for those who are listening on audio. There are a lot of questions. I mean, would it have been easier to contract? Would that have made it look worse? I mean, people are saying, well, that game wasn't on streaming, Tim. Well, that's got to be one of the reasons. I don't know. And well, I mean, if you were going to say that, then why wasn't the Minnesota Nashville game streamed? But John, when you saw everything that you did, and yes, there were reports by many people, and it painted as I said, it painted a very bad picture of the league this past weekend and on its kickoff weekend. What were your what was your takeaway?
Well, let me start by saying there are additional items that we can't even discuss. And my additional takeaway, or my takeaway in general, is I feel bad for the players because this is something that these men take very seriously. They're looking to make a name for themselves. They want to play football. They are looking at the Arena Football League as a stepping stone to a higher level, whether that be a UFL, CFL, NFL, what have you. They're out here to prove that they have what it takes to rise to that next level. And when you have the entire roster just let down, dropped. I know that the kicker for the Soul, I'm not 100% sure, but he's international. I don't know if he was living in the States or if he came here to be the kicker for the Soul, but he never got on the plane. He simply just went back to the parking garage and got in his car. It's so disappointing. I feel downright awful for everyone that tried to be on this team and was just a letdown. I don't really have any other words for it because we can look at it from a journalistic perspective of this happened, that happened, and you know, the league didn't do this or the league did do that, but at the end of the day, all these people that are trying to make a living or they're giving something up to be on this team and play this season just got kicked to the curb.
Yeah, I saw the kickers Insta story. I saw some of the other stuff, and I know yes, there are pictures that came out, and there are things, as you said, that we really can't talk about, um, because it really hasn't been confirmed. But as I said, when you as a longtime arena football fan are able to you know put this in the same storybook as what happened in 2012 to the Pittsburgh Power, it's still not a good look. And
No.
I just, we're coming up on week 2. Philadelphia is supposed to be making their TV debut. Who is going to be playing as the Philadelphia Soul? Is it going to be an actual team? Who's the head coach? Is it still the coach for that team out of the AAL too? Um, you know, when it came to Coach Pimmel, what were the original reasonings for him leaving? Was it a us versus them type of thing? What side of the coaching staff are you on? Do you believe the coach? Are you on his side? Are you on the GM side? That type of thing. Was that the case? There are so many different things that it could actually be that I don't think that we're ever going to know the full story. And
No.
I get it. I kind of understand why. Now, people have to understand that they're saying, like, Tim, you've been a huge proponent of this league from day one. You've been always so positive about it. You back things up. Um, and my comment is, uh, if I am, I will always be somebody who is open to everything. I will be like a reporter does and try to report everything as a reporter would by vetting everything. me not commenting on something doesn't mean that I agree with it. It doesn't mean that I condone it. People just need to understand that as you're seeing tonight, and as you saw last night when I brought up the whole thing with the Oregon president and owner, if I have an issue, I'm going to say something about it. So I don't want people taking it to the fact that I may not be saying something or I'm being silent, meaning that I'm sticking with the status quo. That's not the case. And I hope people understand that, because it's I've been around long enough to know that there are always two sides to every story. Sometimes people can be wrong. Sometimes people can be duped. I do get that. But again, just because certain people don't speak up doesn't mean that they're complicit to what's happening. So,
Never complacent. Never.
no. Somebody brought up something to it, and I mean, is there anything else that we can talk about this? I mean, this Philadelphia situation. Obviously, we're hoping to hear something from the league, whether it be, Commissioner Hutton or the league itself, which again has been very quiet on certain things, and I don't know if we'll hear specifics, but I would hope that we will find out if it is an actual Philadelphia, if they're able to recover and become an actual Philadelphia Soul team, or if it is going to be a replacement team, which I don't think has ever happened twice. It's funny. Other than the mixed teams that it happened in the test game and the showcase game, which, they were semi-pro teams at the time. So I hope that we're able to find out, because if this game is going to be on national television, then there needs to be some news and some accountability on what's going to occur. So
I think to actually bring out what someone said in the chat here on YouTube, and this is a great point. Brandon Soros says, I know from my perspective, being new to arena football, it would go a long way to show transparency. This first week is my only exposure, and woof.
it's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. And how many others out there stumbled across the AFL in this last year and decided to give it a shot, and they were met with this train wreck of a first week.
Mm-hmm. And the killer thing is, I know Brandon, and I was hyping it up to him, and this comes back and it, it blows up in my face. I hope fans like Brandon, who have been hyped by, and others who have been hyped by friends to say, come on, see the game, that type of thing, are able to rebound from this. And if it does get better, I'm again, there are 9 weeks left in the regular season. So, but again, if we hear anything else, we put it out on social media. Again, same thing with social media. Just because we don't put out anything out there, we want to vet what we see, as it has been in our 26-year history at Arena Fan. Like any good reporter, you will vet something, and you will try to get at least 2 confirmations on what you're seeing.
Tim, don't age us like that.
I aged me. Good question, because I was just about to bring it up, and I know somebody else commented on it also too.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, real quickly, by the way, for Brian, I don't know. There's been no. We can assume, but what happens when you assume, John. But we will just assume that they're getting paid the exact same amount as any other player would in the Arena Football League, which would be $1,000 a game, a minimum $1,000 a game.
I wish I had a picture of a donkey, because assuming makes an ass out of you.
There you go. Thank you. He finished it for me. Okay, so as Adam brought up, and I know others have brought up too, and this is a negative also. As it was it was put out on Law 360 that the NAL, the National Arena League, was trying to get an injunction against the West Texas Desert Hawks to stop them from playing their home opener and their season opener and their inaugural game in the AFL this past week. They tried at a last minute attempt on Friday, according to the story and to the documents, of stopping them from playing their game. As people may or may not know, is that West Texas was originally the West Texas Warbirds, and they did play in the NAL for one season. And they were, I guess, they either broke a contract or they found a loophole in their contract, and they were able to leave, rebrand, and become the West Texas Desert Hawks and play in the AFL this season. I don't know the specifics to that particular agreement between them and the NAL. I have questions myself, John, when it comes when I first heard about the actual lawsuit itself. Is that, well, okay, if that's the case with the National Arena League, and it has nothing to do with them leaving and also taking their former commissioner, Coach Siegfried, with them, what about the San Antonio Gunslingers who went to the IFL? If they had a 3-year, I would assume a 3-year contract also with the NAL. What's the difference? Now, please, if anybody in the chat knows it, let me know, because as far as I know, you need to treat everybody the same. Whether you get butt hurt because you lose your commissioner also, and he happens to go to a rival league, and because he's a well-known head coach, well-known arena coach. So I do know that because they were unable to do some, I guess, either some filings of some sort, the judge kind of said no to the actual injunction itself because, I guess, of the timing of it. And there were some questions that the judge had. Again, the documentation is there, by the way. It is there. If you go to the story, we do have it linked on our socials and on I think it's on our Facebook page also. No, it's on the main page over at arenafan.com. You can get into there. You can sign up for free, look at the story, and you can download the actual lawsuit for free. All the documentation is there to read. So it's three. I remember going to Law 360 a while ago for certain things that happened in the Arena League. So
why would we want to read a lawsuit, Tim? Come on.
No. What do you mean we didn't? We didn't pay for insurance? But again, yes, yeah. Brian is right. I think because I think they were past the normal 3 years, and they're the ones that started the league anyway. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
But thoughts though, John, on this? I mean, obviously we're not law professors. We're just going based off the information that's there. I'm sure there seems to be some things that I'm sure that the West Texas lawyers could use to their advantage, a la the San Antonio situation. If that is the case, that they left early or paid a fee to leave for breaking their, for breaking their lease, for breaking their contract.
Mm-hmm.
But thoughts on this? Because, the NAL is claiming that it hurts their reputation and it's hurting their game. And I'm thinking, really? It's hurting your reputation on a team, on a league that's had X amount of teams that left this year. You've had other teams come in. Currently, you are unstable also to other indoor leagues this season. How can that claim be even said? But it's legal speak. That's it's legal speaking.
And I just don't know enough about the inner workings of that situation. But as you said, we could definitely speak to a long-running instability with the NAL.
Mm-hmm.
But here we are, also facing unstable ground.
And I'm curious to know, it's funny, if anybody's been to Law 360 recently and there's been an update of any sort, let me know. I'll make sure that we do put it out on all of our socials. Um, but other again, it's unfortunately for fans of the Arena Football League, after 5 years, this relaunch did not go as well and as we had hoped. Obviously, there was the thing too with the NFL Network and them canceling those games too. I've heard one reason. I've heard another reason. So the kind of what I've heard of has kind of canceled each other out, John, and I don't know which direction to go. But so far, because this happened after we did our show last week, but so far it seems that the Thursday game is a go, and so are the weekend games. And hopefully Albany will be able to put on a great show again this week. So, yeah.
Maybe this would be a good segue into some more positive topics.
Go for it, my friend. Besides the schedule, go for it.
Yeah, well, we see some great positivity here with some of the teams, the Cats, Firebirds, the Rampage, the Outlaws,
some of these players being brought up to the NFL also. I mean, I think we've had 4 so far
in the last week-ish, give or take. Yeah. Salina looked good. I mean, definitely we want to take everything that happened with a large grain of salt and be mindful not to get our hopes up. As I had said in some of our internal group discussions for, the podcast and some of us long-time arena fanners, that I really wish that the league would have focused more on 8 teams and spread their resources a little less thin, and maybe we could have ended up with a better overall product with less frustration and headaches this week.
It's true. I'm wondering if Commissioner Hutton will make that comment, or at least talk about that particular thing this week. Were there mistakes made? Yeah, there you go, John the Salt Bay. Were there mistakes made? Second guessing when it came to the number of teams. I'm going to give some of these teams that haven't had home games yet the benefit of the doubt, obviously, but some of these teams where the game product that we know as the AFL, it needs to improve drastically. It really, really does. Get your nets. If you have your field, fantastic. If you're going to be getting your correct boards, get your correct boards and set up. Again, to Oregon, you're in the current situation, but do something to improve it. And again, hopefully these things, and we'll get some information about Philadelphia and stuff like that, because that is a giant headache. That's a giant headache for sure. And it will continue to be a narrative until it is actually fixed and until there's actual questions answered. So,
yes.
Yeah. I want to remind everybody that we are on social media. You can find us almost anywhere. Obviously, you can head over to the internet's historical resource of arena football since 1998, and that is over at arenafan.com. If you haven't already, make sure, and even if you're joining late, that's fine. Make sure you join our pick'em, because it's nice to see people, John, showing up and doing the free arena fantasy that we have available. So even if you're a week late, please come in and join, because we'd love to see you play the game. You can find us over on Twitter at ArenaFan. You can find this podcast over at AFL Rewind. And you can also find us on Instagram and also over on YouTube and on Facebook. Real quickly, so for people who know, before we let you guys go this week, here is the current week 2 schedule. It is on Thursday. It is going to be Nashville traveling to Albany on NFL Network. On Saturday, Iowa Rampage travels to play the Southwest Kansas Storm. Billings is on the road and goes to play at the Oregon Black Bears. Georgia By the way, to me, I didn't play that well, John, but I love their uniforms too, by the way. They came out with their nice blue lids. I kind of like
The
what they had there.
Force.
Yeah, the Force, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. They're going to be playing at the Louisiana Voodoo. Um, on Sunday, West Texas travels to Orlando in a 1 o'clock game on the NFL Network. Rapid City travels to Washington in their home opener. Let's see, at 6. You also have another 6 o'clock game on Sunday. It is the Philadelphia Soul playing the Minnesota Myth, and that is also going to be on NFL Network. And obviously, as I said, stay tuned to social media, and hopefully we can be able to give you some more information on who is going to be on that roster. And then a Monday night arena football game. Salina travels to play the Wichita Regulators in their home opener. And obviously, stay tuned for any information when it comes to where these games are going to be streamed. Most likely over on arenafootball.live. But if they happen to be also on the Vire network, please stay tuned to the Arena Football's social medias or to our social medias, or the team, and we'll make sure you guys let you guys know. And also, last thing too, by the way, if you haven't seen, there's a lot more stuff that has been added over at Royal Retros, John, when it comes to throwback merchandise. Make sure if you head over there, you can use the promo code ArenaFan at checkout and save 10% off in your entire order. Dude, they've added a lot. I don't know if you've gone there recently, but they've added a lot.
I am there right
Yeah,
now.
they've added a lot of cool stuff. They've added a lot of T-shirts and stuff like that. I can't wait to see what they do when it comes to making their new jerseys and stuff like that. So. But yeah, head over there and, I said, use the code, save some money. Again, we're hoping week 2 goes better than week 1 does. Hopefully, Commissioner Hutton will give us at least some insight on what's happening on Thursday on the post-game show after the NFL Network broadcast. But other than that, we wish you guys a great week. Enjoy the action, and hopefully it will be better in some locales than it was in week 1. And John and I will be back next week to talk about everything about arena football, and hopefully maybe we'll try to get in a guest also next week. So stay tuned, right, John?
Yes, we've already got a few potential candidates lined up.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Oh, Erie, I didn't know this. That's brand new.
What's that?
They got the burnt orange. Oh, baby.
Okay.
Oh, baby.
I'm going to have to look that up.
To do more films? No, I'm not joining the broadcast in Albany. I just happened to be on their pregame and postgame shows this past week. And doing, Adam's a great guy. Adam Pelletier, he's a great guy. And he runs a lot of stuff behind the scenes for the AFL podcast. But I will admit, doing that hour after the Orlando GM came on, man, I was exhausted. I just wanted to get up to my seat and watch the game. But I had fun. That's all that mattered. So, anyways, John and I will be back next week. And as again, hope you have a very good week too. So for everybody here at AFL Rewind, for Jon Stark, I'm Tim Capper. Watch the rebound off the net.